Welcome to the Jamesburg Presbyterian Church. Today is Tuesday, March the 16th, 2021. Today we're taking a look at the third chapter of Tobit, actually starting at verse 7. Last week we took a look at chapters 1 and 2 and part of chapter 3. The story is basically Tobit becomes blind. He realizes that he is in big trouble, and he has an argument with his wife. His wife is really insulted that Tobit believes that she has stolen a goat from a person who is paying her to be a weaver. And so Tobit goes outside. He confesses that he comes from a sinful people to God, praises God, makes that confession, and then asks God to kill him. That's where we left off last week. Now, what this story is, the next is the story that attaches to the book of Tobit. And we are to believe that this is happening simultaneously to the first two chapters. And this is the story of Sarah. She's part of a family. Her father's name is Raguel, and her mother's name is Edna. And Sarah is a young woman, and she has a problem. And the problem is she is haunted by a demon whose name is Amadeus. Amadeus is a demon that was well known in the Persian Empire, part of the children's stories that were told back then, the scary stories that are told. That demon is a demon of wrath. In this particular case, we're to believe that the demon is jealous. The demon wants Sarah for himself, and so every time she marries, the demon comes out on the night of the marriage when they go to the bridal chamber and kills the groom. Sarah has been married 7 times, and 7 times the grooms have been killed. 7 is that complete number, so what we're to believe, or what is suggested by that number, is that Sarah has had as many husbands as she will ever have. There are not going to be any more. She's had the complete round of husbands, and that's it. Of course, I would ask the question, after husband number 3 dies the night of the wedding, why would husband number 4 want to marry her? What's wrong with this picture? Anyway, she has the demons visiting her and killing off the husbands. The story begins in chapter 3, verse 7. A maid speaks to her. And I'm going to read exactly what the maid says. The maid says to Sarah, "You are the one who strangles your husbands. Look at you. You have already been married 7 times, but you have had no joy with any one of your husbands. Why do you beat us? Because your husbands are dead. Then why not join them? May we never see a son or daughter of yours." Very harsh words to Sarah from a maid, but apparently now Sarah knows what's being said about her behind her back, that she is a murderer. And she runs away from this place and runs to an upstairs room where she cries. Now she decides that the best course of action for her is to commit suicide. And as she's contemplating suicide, she also realizes that this will bring even more of a burden of disgrace to her father. And she doesn't want to do that to damage the family name. So she decides to not commit suicide. She also prays, and the prayers are being heard in heaven by God simultaneously. And her prayer is basically she starts off with praise, acknowledges that she is the only child her parents have, that there's no one else that she can marry, and that she has been married 7 times before, and that she also asks for God to kill her. But then offers one more option, something that Tobit doesn't offer. Tobit just wants to die, period. But she says to God, "But if it please you not to slay me, look favorably upon me and have pity on me." So, few things. Sarah's name is linked to the Sarah who was the wife of Abraham. That name means lady, gentlewoman, or princess. And so in this case, there is that linkage, and it's on purpose. The story of the monster in the bridal chamber is a well-known story that was told in the Persian Empire back in this time period when the book of Tobit was written. And in that particular case, the hero of the story meets up with a stranger. The stranger suggests to the hero of the story that he ought to marry the princess. But the stranger knows that the princess is haunted by a demon. So that on the night of the consummation of the marriage, the stranger is present with the hero of the story and the princess. And when the demon arises to kill the groom, the stranger kills the demon. The stranger then says, "I'm entitled to one half of what you have," suggesting that the stranger will now kill or cut in half the princess. When the stranger says these words, a second demon appears, and the stranger is able to kill that demon as well. The stranger knew that all along, but did not tell the hero of the story this fact so that he could create the happy ending that ends in, where the hero of the story and the princess live happily ever after. So it's a story that is told in the Persian Empire to children. It's a children's story like a Grimm's fairy tale. And that story has been accommodated in this particular story of Sarah. So the demon is killed, or the demon is killed in that story, but the demon still exists in the Sarah story. Sarah has contemplated suicide. Incidentally, suicide is not prohibited in Jewish law if the suicide is for the purpose of relieving those who commit suicide when faced with military defeat, imminent capture, or disgrace are not condemned for their actions. So suicide could be an option. It is not an unredeemable sin in Jewish law in her case. So she has offered one more possibility, and that is that God look favorably upon her. Now, the last two verses of chapter 3, if we were writing this story, and I'm going to suggest that maybe the writer struggled with the placement of these two verses. Because on the one hand, if I want to create a cliffhanger, if I want to create suspense, the last thing I'm going to do is put the next two verses in chapter 3. I'll hold on to them for later on down the road. However, on the other hand, if I want to specifically teach the fact that God hears prayers and answers them, then these two verses are relevant in this placement. And I believe that that's what the writer obviously had in mind, that he wasn't writing a cliffhanger, he wasn't writing a suspense story, he was writing a theological piece that says God hears our prayers as they are offered, and God answers them in ways sometimes beyond our imagination. So what we're told in verse 16 is that these two prayers are heard by God simultaneously. And in verse 17, the last verse, God calls up an angel by the name of Raphael and gives Raphael 3 jobs. The first job is to heal Tobit of his blindness. The second job is to see that the demon is driven from Sarah. And the third job, and this is the surprise because no one has asked for it, is to see that Tobiah and Sarah are married. That's the job. So we now know that God is going to send this angel to bring closure to both of the dilemmas that the two characters, Tobit and Sarah, face, and also to create that final marriage for Sarah, one in which everyone lives happily ever after. So that's the story for today. Next week we're going to pick up and we're going to do chapters 4, 5, and 6. And this is the next part of the story. We will meet the character Raphael. We will follow the journey of Tobiah and Raphael as they go to Media by way of Ecbatana, where Sarah is living. And then we will see what happens when they get there. So that is the story for today, the installment for today. I'm trying to keep these Bible studies deliberately short so that we're not going into all of the word studies that would involve explaining Hebrew words. But I want to be sure that all of you will tune in and catch what's going on in the book of Tobit. Next week will probably be a little longer because we're dealing with a lot more material. Thank you for tuning in today. Tomorrow there will be a devotional. It'll be magical, I promise you. And on Sunday, I will once again be here to lead a live stream on Facebook, on YouTube, for our worship service. Thank you again. Stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you soon. Bye now.